Do you remember what it was like when you'd order a taxi and you didn't know how far away it was? Do you remember what it was like when we had map books, but it didn't tell you how long it was going to take, trying to estimate how long it would take to get somewhere? Well, to me, that is why timers are so important in classrooms. One of the biggest things I learned when I moved to an autism school from mainstream was I had a timetable in my primary school classroom, but it didn't tell the children how long, and I didn't break tasks down to how long we were spending on each activity. I believe time management is anxiety management. See, when we used to stand there waiting for a taxi and not know how far away it was, we got more and more anxious. 1 minute felt like 1 hour. Or when you planned a route on a map in the Melways, I grew up in Melbourne, and then you didn't know how long it was going to take, and then you got stuck in traffic, the anxiety you felt. I always remember when I moved from Melbourne to Adelaide. In Melbourne, I don't know why, I used to think allowed 20 minutes to go from one side of a map page to the other. Don't know why I had that rule, but that was my rule. And then I moved to Adelaide and everything's 10 minutes. You go over the map book was anyway. The point of it is, one of the strategies I believe every classroom needs is a visual timer. Children with autism spectrum have trouble with planning, prioritizing, organising. These are all executive functioning skills. And most of them have time blindness. I've done an episode on that in the past and I'll link to it. But imagine not being able to estimate time. Dean Beadle in the executive functioning course talks about he thought everything took 20 minutes. So he was always running late because he thought everything took 20 minutes. He was always late to go to his boyfriend's because he thought it was 20 minutes. And when he got Google Maps and it estimated how long, it's 37 minutes. He was never going to be on time. But the rest of us would go, oh, I'll adapt that. I'll change. Because remember, adaptability and flexible thinking is part of executive functioning too. Now, if you know nothing about executive functioning are the skills you need to execute something. It's the one thing I wished I'd learned about at uni. It's not talked about enough. For my children with autism spectrum, it's also emotional regulation. So when the timer goes off, if they haven't finished work, managing their emotions. If you think about it, all of us use time every day and we use our executive functioning skills together. We work out how long is something going to take. If it takes longer, we adapt next time. Dean's point is he was always late, but he didn't adapt. People with autism spectrum, Tony Atwood describes it like they have a one-track mind, like a train on a train track. Neurotypical people are like a four-wheel drive. We can move and accommodate and we can go up and down and reverse and we can do all these things. Whereas for a train on a track, it's very hard to reverse and change direction. And we all have this adaptable, flexible brain. And for many of our children, they make the same mistakes over and over again, which is Dean's point. It wasn't until Google Maps pointed out it would take him 37 minutes that he realised he'd always allowed 20 minutes. So my question to you is this: how are you helping children keep track of time? Because my guess is they are actually asking you or using behaviour. How much longer do I have to finish this? It's a bit like me at the gym when I'm doing a plank. A minute feels like a long time to me. I know I should be doing it. It's good for me. But 30 seconds feels like an hour. For some of my children, sitting feels like an hour. When you're doing something you find hard, time goes slow. When you're doing something you enjoy, time disappears. So this is why this child will self-report, oh, I only just got on my iPad. I only just started playing with my Lego. Because time disappears. When you're doing something you love, boom, where did the time go? Oh, it's midnight. I've been out for 5 hours, whatever. I want you to think of yourself today. I want you to notice when you look at the clock, when does time go fast and when does time go slow? When do you catch yourself re-looking at the clock and it's only been 1 minute? Imagine being in your classroom or even your home getting ready for school in the morning or getting ready for something Imagine not knowing how long you need to do something for. Imagine not knowing how long something should take. One of the strategies Anna Tullemans and I talk about with homework is parents actually saying to a child, we'll put the timer on for 20 minutes, just do 20 minutes homework and see how much you can get done. Because if the school says the child should only be doing 20 minutes homework, my perfectionists are going to be there for 2 hours. We're just going to do 20 minutes. Another thing Dean Beadlepot talks about in the executive functioning course is, let's just do 5 minutes. Like he says for him, he has a thing called autistic inertia or ADHD paralysis, that getting started can be a challenge for him. But if he just tells himself, just do 5 minutes, see how much you can get done in 5 minutes. Often he can do 20 minutes, but the thought of doing 20 minutes is daunting and overwhelming. So we must put in place strategies, accommodations, and for me, the most important accommodation in your classroom is the child being able to keep track of time. Now, I know schools still teach analog time. I don't know why. I don't walk into anyone's house now that uses analog. I don't go into any train stations. I don't know anyone who uses analog except me with my old watch. Like, the truth is, children today don't need to know analog. It's as helpful as learning to use an inkwell. Everything's digital time now. I don't even know why schools buy analog clocks. Some kids might be able to read 10:40, but do they know it's 20 minutes to the break? Okay, I'll let my high horse run away because some of you are like, analog's important. Okay, well, most families I go into and homes I go into do not have analog clocks except for a decoration. But those of you who have done my workshops will know one of the top 10 accommodations that I think every classroom needs a time. Time management is anxiety management. If a child knows how long they have to do something, it helps them push through. And if they love something, it helps them transition to get off it, to finish it. So how is the child keeping track of time? I met the most beautiful maths teacher last week who, what she does in her classroom in secondary is she'll say, okay, here's the problem. It should take us 10 minutes. I'm going to put the timer on for 10 minutes. At the end of 10 minutes, let's see who's finished. So after the 10 minutes, she's like, okay, hands up, who's finished? Okay, only half of you are finished. We're going to put the timer on for another 5 minutes. Those of you who are finished, here's the extension task. I love it. See, we need to teach children what to do if the timer goes off and they haven't finished. The way I describe it to children or with my own children, I'll be like, look, when I'm cooking a cake, the recipe says 30 minutes. But I always put the timer on for 25 because what if it cooks quicker? I don't want it to burn. So I'll check in at 25 and then I'll put the timer on for another 5 minutes. 5-minute warnings are so important for neurodiverse children. So when they're doing something they love, the 5-minute warning prepares them that they're going to have to get off it, that they're going to have to move on. For children with ADHD, when you give them a 5-minute warning, if they've been in paralysis for 25 minutes, you will get the most amazing minutes in work in the last 5 minutes. You won't believe they can get so much done in 5 minutes. They were paralyzed for the first 25. That 5 minutes is when I get my best work. But if you don't give them a 5-minute warning, you're going to get no work. In fact, I would encourage that 5 minutes is a silent time in your classroom because for my neurodiverse children, often it's all the sensory why they're not getting anything on paper. Or let them put their new noise-cancelling headphones on for those last 5 minutes to just zoom away, yes? So a 5-minute warning for families before you walk out the door, yes? A 5-minute warning is so valuable. See, I think all of us actually do notice that. In secondary, when I go into schools, I notice most neurotypical kids start packing up in the last 5 minutes. But my neurodiverse kids, suddenly the bell goes and they leave all their stuff behind. We use that planning and organising in the last 5 minutes. Think of yourself, how often 5 minutes before the bell you're thinking with your class, okay, I need to grab my lunch, got yard duty. It's part of transition planning. That last 5 minutes is when you're thinking about what's coming up, what you need to do, what you need to pack away. If nothing else today, can I ask that this week you try 5-minute warnings? Now, after that 5 minutes is up with my cake, I check again. And I'm like, oh, it still needs another 5 minutes. So I put the timer on for another 5 minutes. We need to model to children what to do if the timer goes off and we haven't finished. Do we need another 5 minutes? Oh, we haven't got time for another 5 minutes. We need to go outside to play. So this might be where you use sticky notes, and I love sticky notes, and you'll put your sticky note where the child's up to so they know when they come back where they're up to, planning and prioritizing, organizing, executive functioning. Neurotypical kids will remember where they're up to. Neurodiverse children will forget. Or those of you that are using the Tomorrow Box now, and I know lots of you are loving this, that will go with the sticky note in the Tomorrow Box. So when they have finished early, they can come back to it. So often, neurotypical kids work this out. They circle stuff, they ear it, their book, whatever. Neurodiverse children, we need to put in place the systems. And one of those systems is time. Time management is anxiety management. I really want you to notice yourself, how often you look at your watch, as I say, but also notice what you're thinking. What is your thinking behind that? And what I'd like you to do is verbalize that. So saying to the kids, oh, it's 5 minutes till lunchtime. Remember, after lunch, we've got library. So we need to think about packing away what we're doing. And for me, I've got Yaji, actually talk through your planning and organizing. Because how can our kids learn it unless we model it and show it? Show your children when the timer goes off what you do, parents. My guess is you've all been running late. What do you do? It's like a social script. Sometimes they're running early, sometimes they're running late. If we're running late, we can apologize, but next time we're going to allow 5 extra minutes. I was fascinated this year. We went to visit our beautiful Eliza in London, and we stopped, I think the stopover was in Singapore. I don't know about you. When I'm on those planes, I go into this sort of time warp and brain warp. What I love now at Singapore airport, it told me how long to allow to walk to the next gate. I love that. It said it'd be a 7-minute walk or a 25-minute walk. That is so helpful to know how far away the gate is, isn't it? How long it's going to take. Because again, Dean Beadle would have thought 20 minutes. So I would love all of you to think about telling children, okay, we're going to do 10 minutes, or your homework tonight should take you 20 minutes. Actually giving them time frames. On your timetable, tell children how long each lesson's going to go for. And please use time timers. They are designed for neurodiverse children. In fact, they're designed for people with head injuries too, to make time visual, okay? And if you want to know more about that, I did do a podcast episode with one of the people who work for Time Timer and explained how time timers are designed and why they're visual, why they go the opposite way to what your clock does, because they're not about teaching time. They're about making time visual, okay? So I want you today to think about your now, next, later, or your when, then visuals, adding time to that so children know how long they're on something. If you have trouble getting a child off an activity, my guess is they don't know where they're going next or how long they're going to be on the activity. The new time timers, medium, they used to be called large, but the ones that now have magnets to go on your whiteboard, the legs go in. Oh, people often ask me what batteries, and look, they just take 2 AA batteries. And I think in fact, I just realized my batteries I've had in for a whole year this year. So actually, they can last a whole year. The sound goes on and off, but on top now there's a little little whiteboard, a little white card that you can write on and wipe off with a whiteboard marker. Sorry if that doesn't make sense. There's a little white card that goes on top. You write on with a whiteboard texter, and then you can rub it off. Don't tell the child what they're doing. They know what they're doing. That card should show them what they're doing next. Now, any of you with ODD or PDA children who find timers demanding, couple of hints for you. Number 1, let them turn the timer on. Number 2, make sure if they're going from a high demand task, a task they love, a low demand task, so they're on their iPad or doing their Lego or their drawing, The next task can't be a high demand task. You need what I call a transition task. So it would be iPad, do a job for you, or the toilet, or something they enjoy, a sensory break or a snack, then maths. What is the transition task? What is something that can move them from something they love to something they hate, basically? Yeah. And you need a transition task. Now, if you are working with children with ODD and PDA, I know you've heard me talk about the GPS analogy lots of times, and those of you who have done my workshops would have heard me talk about it. What I would say, with Google Maps, I was thinking about this the other day. With Google Maps, it gives you the school that I was at last week with the maths teacher, it gave me 3 different ways I could go. Some of your ODD and PDA children need real choices, okay? That is so those 3 ways to get to my destination, they're all going to get me to the destination. One might be 37 minutes, one might be 42 minutes, one might have tolls on it, yes? And then I choose which route I want to take. For children with ODD and PDA, you might have to give them real choices. And what I mean by that is, okay, before they get on their iPad, before they get on what they want to do, when we've finished that, do you want to go to the toilet or get a drink? Do you want to help me hand out the books, or do you want to collect up the books? Give them those options, because that then gives them control. Now, you're going to have to experiment. Do they need the choices before they get on the iPad or after? And then you'll move to maths. I hope that makes sense, because I'm sort of talking it through visually with my hands, and I've actually drawn little pictures on my piece of paper to explain that, but I hope that makes sense. So just circling back, remember, children with autism spectrum have trouble predicting, and ADHD predicting, how long things will take. A timer lets them know. However, you need a plan B. What if things take longer? Because remember, they need to manage their emotions. If they haven't finished what they're doing, when are you going to come back to it? Maybe you put the post-it note. Maybe you do the tomorrow box. Maybe you have a list of things to come back to. Because remember, now you're relying on their working memory to remember where they're up to, what they're doing, and when they'll come back to it. All of these are executive functioning skills, which is why we need timers as part of our support and accommodations. So I would love you to think about, how can you put in place visuals to help children? How can you put in place a timer with your visuals? How can you help children who get stuck get started? And that might be just let's try 5 or 10 minutes. And how do you help children transition or finish? I think a timer is what you need. So if you haven't got what I'm talking about by now, I believe time management is anxiety management. Without a timer, children are going to rush through things or want to get off things. A timer helps you pace yourself throughout the day. So look at how you use time and how it helps you pace yourself throughout the day. So I'd also like you to think about when time makes you anxious and what you do about that. And I'd like you to talk to the children about it. Now, this week I do have some lovely tip sheets to go with this podcast. The Executive Functioning course is a brand new course with Dean Beadle. If you don't know about it, actually, some of you won't know about it because it's only coming out soon. Make sure you register to be told when it's going to be out. I'll have a box on the podcast. I will put that on the podcast page. The other thing at that school I was at last week is I met a beautiful first-year out teacher who was really questioning her teaching and whether she should be a teacher. And it just reminded me why I do what I do. I just saw myself in her, where she's such a passionate teacher, has a complex class, and that feeling of, it's term 4. How did I get to term 4 and I still don't know what I'm doing? And I get that. People often say to me, Sue, why did you start in autism? Do you have a child with autism? Well, no, I don't. But I had a child with autism in my class. And I remember sitting in my driveway and that feeling of, I just got through the day. I feel like I'm babysitting. I want to teach. And that is exactly how this teacher was feeling. I always call the children my children because I'm the sort of teacher that cries at the end of the year. I'm the sort of teacher that I always hold a place in my heart for the children I teach. And that's just me, each to their own. But that is me. I always think when I go to a doctor, I always say to a doctor, what would you do if I was your sister? Well, when I teach children, I always teach with what would I do if they were my child? And that's just me. So anyway, back to this beautiful teacher. It just reminded me why I run transition workshops at the end of the year. I have got upcoming transition workshops and one in January. And the reason I run it now, it drives me nuts. Schools don't give teachers training before they get the child. This teacher was only just learning now about teaching neurodiverse children. She's been struggling all year. She's like, if only I knew this. And I'm like, I agree. Why do we give teachers first aid training before there's an incident? Because they need to know about the first aid things to put in place. We don't wait till there's an incident. We teach the teachers before. You can't go into a classroom without first aid training, but you can go in not having learned anything about what to do with neurodiverse children, not to learn about meltdowns, sensory, about executive functioning stuff, this stuff that I'm talking about, the importance of timers. I mean, a lot of meltdowns are around transition, aren't they? Moving from one activity to another. Like she was just sitting there just going, this is all the stuff I've needed all year. And that's why I do this, because I don't want anyone else feeling the way I feel. In fact, yesterday I ran a workshop for a school who just did a workshop for teacher assistants, and it was a really special day. I was a bit teary at the end of the day because, again, I work with so many teacher assistants who, I call my angels, because if you have a good angel, you have a good year, who often are working with the most challenging behaviour in the school, yet have not done any training on behaviour. Nearly all of them, when I said to them, what was your top takeaway? It was understanding the difference between a sensory meltdown, a behaviour meltdown, and a tantrum, and what to do. And this is what you'll learn if you join me for my upcoming transition to 2025 days and my workshop in January to start the year off. This is all the stuff you'll learn to start the year. And I would prefer you had it now so you can prepare. Anyway, again, I don't know why my high horse is running around today. I think I'm just, having been in schools lately, I start to get really passionate and I start to just sort of go, no wonder schools can't get relief teachers. No wonder staff are burnt out. No wonder the average teacher in New South Wales only stays 5 years, because I truly believe it's behaviour. It's the stuff I'm talking about, the proactive strategies teachers can put in place. Simple things like a timer plus a schedule. Simple things like that maths teacher going, okay, let's see how far we can get in 10 minutes. These are not hard strategies. And guess what? The whole class will love them. It's not just our neurodiverse children. In my experience, all the kids love this stuff. So back to timers. Just some top tips for why I would be using timers. So these are in the tip sheet, but I'm just going to do some top 10 tips for using timers. Number 1, for easing transitions. So children aren't like, how much longer? Okay, so easing those transitions, the 5-minute warnings. Helping children push through challenging activities. So I had a little boy years ago whose teacher was having trouble with him sitting on the mat. So he'd put the timer on for 10 minutes and that visually helped him push through because he knew how long he was on the mat for. So helping children push through on difficult tasks. It helps everyone stick to the routine. Timers keep me honest. And there's now classroom sets. So if you do lots of group work, there's primary colours and secondary colours. You could have the red group, the yellow group, the blue group, or the green group, the purple group, the orange group, having those set up so all the children can have their individual group timers. It helps everyone keep on track. So all the groups know when they're going to rotate. It reduces anxiety by creating predictability and consistency. Can you imagine if you turned up at the train station, it's like, oh, we'll just come when we feel like it. Think about how often you rely on time and knowing what time things are happening. For many of our children with time blindness, it helps them actually develop a reliable internal clock by using the timer. It helps with organization and time management so you don't get caught up in preferred activities, yes? You can see at a glance how much time is left because the visual timer has that beautiful red that moves back. It helps you actually keep focused and on track. It helps you break things down into small manageable steps. So you might put the 15 minutes on, yes? So you do 2 15 minutes in a session, It helps children provide for the individual timers, helps them be focused for that set time. For tests and exams, absolutely fantastic. In fact, I say to schools, get them out for nap plan. They're fantastic, so you can use them for that. They help children know how long to speak in debates, presentation, newses, whatever you're doing, yes? Because some of my children go on and on and on and on and on. So having that timer. But most importantly, it empowers children to manage their own time. And this is a life skill. Parents, instead of rushing your children, the word hurry up can trigger a meltdown, actually having that timer and then being able to manage their time. It actually helps with turn taking, so children get equal turns. It helps children with break times. Oh, I had a teacher assistant yesterday who was having trouble getting the child back from brain breaks. No, you've 5 minutes. That's enough. The child doesn't know how long they're on the brain break and then he was having trouble. Guaranteed they weren't using a timer. It breaks larger tasks into small manageable tasks. It helps with rotating if you're doing rotating learning stations. It helps manage screen time. If you haven't got a timer for screen time, watch out, and special interests. It actually helps children slow down and not rush, okay? And for children who lose track of time when they're doing something they love, they often don't know where the end point is, so it helps them finish. Now, with this week's podcast and tip sheets, I've put together a visual of all my favourite time timers. The medium one is my favourite. All my timers. I love the portable digital schedules too, which you can add your visual schedule to, and they have a digital timer that can count up or down. I'll put a video on the podcast page so you can see how to use those. I also have the liquid timers and the liquid keychain. I use all of them. And I recommend you think about using them too. So I hope you've got some top tips. There also is some tips around minimizing stress around timers. And one of those is writing social scripts to explain what to do if you run out of time. And also you talking things through, yes, like what to do if you miss the bus or train. We all run late, and that is about adapting next time. So if you have any questions, as always, email me. Make sure you download the tip sheets to go with this, and keep an eye out for the executive functioning course because I know you're going to love it. And so much of time management and anxiety management has to do with our ability to execute anything. So good luck with that. And I hope that you spend the next day reflecting on how you personally use time and how your neurodiverse children are using time too.